what's going on? Hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to talk about sounding bluesy as fuck with a 5 major 7 chord, not a dominant 7 chord, a 5 major 7 chord. I posted a comment about this, a post about this like, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago now, just mentioning that it was something I was working on with a private student and kind of hinting at the fact that I would come back and talk about it, but just asking everybody in here if they had any ideas about why this works so well. I don't like to start with theory, I like to start with the ears, so I just encouraged everybody to mess around with it a little bit, using a 5 dominant chord but with a major 7, and to see if your ear could hear why it sounds so good. Because I don't like to explain theory first. I like to start with the ears first. We're musicians, we are artists of the ear. It's like asking a culinary arts student to explain why a dish tastes good before they just taste it. In this video, I'm just gonna break down, I'm gonna play some examples and let you hear what I'm talking about, and then I'll show you how it's a major 7 chord and hopefully help you get started messing around with this. It should unlock some really bluesy comping ideas, either for accompaniment or solo guitar. Okay, both work great. And it should also just help kind of clean up some of our overly academic sounding lines. Jazz did not originate as an overly academic art form, but it has sort of evolved into that. That's not where it started though. It started with show tunes, with, you know, deep like Mississippi, Delta blues, dance music. It evolved into Lester Young type stuff, Louis Armstrong, really lyrical, soulful, bluesy ideas. Then the virtuosic cats came in, Charlie Parker, and he, you know, really opened up the language. And it's easy to chase after that complex stuff and forget about the heart and soul of the music, the blues, where all of this stuff came from. That's where I usually like to focus on until people have just a solid base of musicianship, and then we can expand out into the more advanced territory. So what I'm going to show you in this short little Facebook Live lesson is going to help your comping sound way bluesier, way more organic, so it doesn't just sound like you're playing a bunch of drop 2 chords through a real book chord progression. And it's going to help clean up your solo guitar, comping and solo guitar. And finally, it's going to help clean up your improv so we can just sound bluesy and like soulful and lyrical and authentic in the moment. So check this out. I'm just going to play through a pretty laid back slow blues. I really want your ears to have a chance to hear some sounds. Right, here's the 4 chord. Sharp 4 diminished, back to the 1. I'm not doing anything overly advanced right now. In there. This isn't like a 1-4-5 blues. I used the sharp 4 diminished. I threw in a 2-5 at the end. I'm going to add some more chords into this in a minute. But I just wanted you to hear that nothing I sounded, I'm guessing, comment below, did anything I play sound like I played a wrong chord? Did you hear any wrong chord tones? Did you hear any chords that just sounded totally out of place? Did it ever stop sounding like the blues, or did it just sound like the blues? Let me know below. I'm curious what your guys' ears are hearing. Let me just type blues if it sounded like the blues. Type you suck if it sounded like I was playing a bunch of wrong chords. Let me play through it one more time. 1 chord, kind of like a little vampy version of the 1 chord, just to get a little more motion happening. Right, E7 to the 4 chord, E flat. Sharp 4 diminished. Okay. I played at least 2 chords that are technically not from the real book in here. And I'm going to add some more chords in a minute, but I just want to get started, just basic sound stuff. I played a C dominant, that's a 2 dominant, okay, which is okay. You're allowed to turn pretty much any chord in jazz harmony into dominant if you want. 2 dominants are allowed. We see them. It's just not that often we see them in the blues. But I played C7 in a B flat 7 blues. Excuse me, B flat blues. C7 to F major 7. Back to the 1 chord. If your ear's not already picking up on it, the reason this works is because the note on top is our blue note in this key. Ray, thanks man. Great to see you. It's been a little while since we chatted. The blue note is a non-diatonic note, right? So if you want to accentuate that blue note in your harmony and make your comping and your harmony and your voicings sound bluesy, as opposed to just sounding like a bunch of drop 2 chords, June, great to see you, man. You know, like we have to know our basic chord voicings. We have to be able to follow a real book, chord progression, all that stuff. But that's not really what, you know, Herbie's doing when he's playing through a tune at the piano accompanying someone. There's a much deeper layer to our art form, and much of that is built on soulfulness and bluesiness. Even the most modern cats today are drenched in the blues. All I'm doing is taking the blue note threw in some phrases when I was playing over this. It was basically a blues scale. I rely more on the 6 than the flat 7. Like that's the classic blues scale, but when you really look at the great time-tested, legendary jazz blues that are written by Charlie Parker and Monk and Sonny Rollins and all the greats, we oftentimes see the 6 a lot more than we do the flat 7. Right, that's Sonny Rollins. He's skipping over the, it's not. That's okay, but the 6 is a lot cleaner. It's a lot more of a tonic sound. We'll see that in Charlie Parker's tunes. This is like an F blues sound. He's leaning into the D note, the 6, not the E flat note. It doesn't sound like awful or anything. It's what most people are playing, but it's not actually in alignment with what the tradition is usually relying on, which is the 6. So I was kind of messing around with essentially like a blues scale, a minor blues scale. And I was using that sound both for single note melody and for, let's say, the melodic voicing or the chord melodies that I was playing, the top voice of all my voicings. I was using that over every chord in the progression, even when they clash. Okay, they clash a good bit. My tonic dominant was, you could think of it as a B flat 7 sharp 9. If you do the music school thing, that's what it is. 1, 3, 5, flat 7, sharp 9. But it's not really the sharp 9. Like sharp 9 is kind of this very extended, altered sound. This is just the blues. This is just B flat 7 shell, 1 major 3rd flat 7. With the sound of this blues scale hiding on top of it, sitting up on top of it. You can put any of the notes from this. Right? This is not, I'm not opening the top of my B flat blues form on a B flat half diminished. I'm just playing root flat 7. If I could squeeze in, there it is. Kind of a tough voicing to get in. I'm barring down the 5th fret. That's root major 3rd flat 7. Basic shell voicing. And then the minor 3rd and the blue note from our blues scale. Okay. Super killing voicing. This is why, for those of you who are in my Inner Circle mentorship program and hang with me, this is why I'm so obsessed with just getting you guys to put down the advanced voicings for a while and just come back to shell voicings. Focus on motion, focus on simplicity, just getting the dance of harmony through forms in an improvisational way where you can change the chord progression at any moment, still tell the story of the form. Because once you can do that, that's horizontal harmony, that's just motion, right? You turn yourself into a wave in the ocean, you can lift up the soloist and let them sort of surf on the momentum you're creating, versus vertical harmony, which is note stacking. Here, all I have to do is add 1 or 2 notes from a triad we're working with, or a blues scale, or whatever it is I want to add it from. And I have a fairly sophisticated sounding voicing, but in my brain I'm still just thinking of it as a basic shell voicing. Right? This looks like an E flat 7, flat 9, but it's not. We don't have the flat 9 over the 4 chord in the blues. This is E flat 7, 4 chord, and a B flat blues with the blue note sitting on top of it. That's it. It's that simple. We don't have to overcomplicate this. I would not call this E flat 7, flat 9. If I notated it out, if I was still an adjunct instructor at NYU or Fordham, working with jazz studies majors here in the city, and I wrote that voicing out as a standalone voicing, and somebody labeled it E flat 7, flat 9, I'd give them an A. But in the context of this blues, it's not an E flat 7, flat 9. It's just an E flat 7, and there's a blue note happening on top of it, okay? It's a wrong chord tone. This is not some sort of, you know, dominant diminished. It's not melodic minor. It's just a basic dominant chord, right? There should be a natural 9 in it. Even over the E diminished, I can do this. Here's an A flat dominant. Okay, why am I playing an A flat dominant? For those of you studying me, this is just chord motion. I know I need to get to C minor, the 2 chord. I didn't add any additional passing chords when I first played through this, but now we're getting deep into this. I need to get to C minor, and one way that we know we can get to C minor, dominant motion, we can approach it from a G7. Perfect. If you know dominant motion well, you also know that we can approach G7 from a half step above it, A flat dominant, right? So all I'm doing is playing A flat dominant, and again, putting a note from our blues scale in the top voice. So now it looks like I'm playing an A flat sus, like an A flat sus 9, root, flat 7, 9, 11. But I'm not, it's just A flat dominant. That I played before were C dominant, the 2 chord, because that's C minor, but I'm putting the blue note in the top voice. Right here I'm replacing the minor third with what appears to be the major third. It's not the major third, guys, it's just the blue note. That's all it is. If we wanted to get fancy though, actually play the full-blown C minor 7 shell. Again, this is why it's so fucking important to just put aside all the really shiny objects for a while. Come back to kindergarten. Like we were all brainwashed into skipping jazz kindergarten. It's just a shell voicing, C minor 7. But you put the blue note on top of that C minor 7 shell voicing. Now we have root, flat 7, minor third, major third. There's that crunchy monk half step. We can do the same thing with the F dominant, the 5 chord, when we get to the what is it, bar 8, 9, bar 9, bar 10, excuse me. I was just playing it as an F major 7, right? So it's sort of like F dominant. It is an F dominant. In my brain, I'm thinking F dominant. But I'm just shoving the blue note from our melodic phrasing into the upper voice. I didn't even play major 7, dominant 7. That's a good starting point if you're brand new at this way of thinking, of trying to break out of chord tone thinking and just get into really lyrical, bluesy comping. I'm doing this over the 12-bar blues, but you can do this over any standard you want. If you want it to sound bluesy, just do this on any tune, and it'll shove the sound of the blues, the soulfulness of the blues, into the way you express harmony over any standard. Right there, that's probably the best starting point for the order of operations to, once you can hear this stuff and it makes sense sonically, to start getting it into your playing. Just play F major 7, F dominant 7. Go back and forth a couple times, and then resolve it back into the tonic chord. Okay? Once your ear makes sense of it, and you can actually hear it not as a wrong chord, a non-diatonic chord, a non-functional chord, but actually as the blues, then you can just sit on it. You don't have to resolve the blue note. It's totally fine to not resolve blue notes. If you can play like it's the coolest thing you've ever heard, right? Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. Play it like it's the coolest thing you've ever heard with that level of mojo, and it'll sound better. Miles told us the notes you play are 20%, the attitude you play them with is 80%. Most people are stuck in college, online courses, YouTube videos, chasing for decades, for their whole life, trying to find the most perfect 20% notes, thinking that will magically bring the 80% out of themselves and they'll sound better. You can do that if you want. I think it's kind of a waste of life. Just simplify down the 20%. Right here, I'm not playing any changes. I'm not suggesting changes. We can talk about that. There's definitely ways to do that. But right now, we're just trying to get the blues happening again while chords are moving. Great way to create bluesy comping for the blues and for any standard. Great way to create really lyrical bluesy solo guitar. And also just a good way to break out of arpeggiation, scale noodling, chord tone running for improv. Those are helpful skills to develop, but even the most virtuosic cats, including Charlie Parker, all the way up to the most modern guys, are drenched in the blues. They have blues phrasing flowing out of them. And then they can hit the changes when they want to also. Just F major 7, leave it unresolved. Have the courage to just not resolve it. It will work if you believe it. If your ear hears it and you're like, okay, this makes sense to me, then go with it. If your ear doesn't hear it yet, you haven't made sonic sense of it yet, it's sort of like trying to cook a dish with an ingredient you've never tasted before. Once you know the flavor of it, you can just cook with it. You don't need recipe books. You just like, oh, this needs a little bit more oregano. Cool, you throw some oregano in. It's not a big deal. If you're still approaching music intellectually first, as opposed to from the ear, from the soul, from the heart, that can be a rather uncomfortable place to go because it feels like you're taking a risk. But as soon as you taste those flavors and you recognize what they do, the smell it has, the aroma, the flavor, the texture, then you're just putting in the dish something you already know that you like. So let's expand on this. That was E flat dominant, right? To C major triad over D flat. Almost looks like a full-blown diminished major 7 chord. It kind of is, but again, it's not. The top voice is just the blue note. What was that? That was, this is, again, horizontal motion thinking. Basic shell voicings, not doing any fancy vertical voicings, note stacking, I'm just creating motion. But now I'm going there a different way. The first time I played through this, back at the beginning of the video, was just a basic 1, 4, sharp 4, 1, 2, 5, 1. Then, 10 minutes in, I decided to approach the 2 from G dominant, and I approached the G dominant from A flat dominant. So. Now I'm walking diatonically up. 1, 2, 3, flat 3 diminished. But I'm treating the minor third of this D flat diminished as the blue note because it's the blue note. The sharp 4 is not the only blue note. The flat 7 is a blue note, the minor third is a blue note, the sharp 4 is a blue note. There's a lot of blue notes hiding here. I'm trying to keep this simple and just lean into that, but there's lots of cool flavors, okay? And if our goal is to cook with bluesy flavors, there's right, that's the 6 and the flat 7, the 4 and the sharp 4, the 2 and the minor third. Because this is technically built on it's a dominant chord, but it has a major third in this key. But the major third, it works, it's cool, but it's not as bluesy, as deep as the minor third. Right, that's D flat diminished, just a basic shelf voicing, like the simplest voicing we have in jazz. But I'm treating the minor third as the bluesy sharp 4 and moving down. I just realized this is cool. F9, F sharp 9. Again, it's not an F9 or an F sharp 9, it's just an F7 with a little bluesy inflection point, borrowing from the blues scale I mentioned. Like I said earlier, most people play the blues scale. The one everyone is taught is, you know, root, minor third, 4, sharp 4, 5, flat 7, octave. But when you study the great jazz blues in our tradition, the Monk tunes, the Bird tunes, the Sonny Rollins tunes, more often than not you see the 6, not the flat 7. And if you can learn to lean into the 6, it'll give you a cleaner blues sound almost immediately, and you can then tag the flat 7 onto the 6, just like you have the 4 sharp 4, you get the 6 sharp 6 or flat 7. Right, so when I go to the 5 chord here, I'm playing this dominant. Sharp 9, natural 9, but it's not that. It's just F7 shell. That little bluesy 6, sharp 6, 6. To F major 7. Back to the tonic. Okay? You can add that note, any of these blue notes, against any basic shell voicing you want. And sometimes it'll be an expected chord, sometimes it'll be a very unexpected chord. Like F major 7. That's just weird. But it's not an F major 7. It is if you take a Polaroid of my hand in that moment and analyze the notes, but when you hear it in the context, the way I'm using it, it's just a bluesy F dominant, okay? Root, major third, flat 7, blue note. This is an F dominant with a major 7 on top. This is both, right? E flat and E natural. It's the same thing I did with the C minor, the 2 chord, a few minutes ago. Check out this voice leading. The bottom voice goes down half step. That's C minor to F dominant. That's why it's so critical to just get down basic shell voicings and motion.